Sup dogs, TheOdie here, and welcome to the new series, but only sort of, and not really. I call it my month review, and it takes place at the beginning of every month to talk about what I did in the last month. I kind of decided that now that I've entered this hobbyist / retired state, but also a game developer, I'm not going to be uploading all that much anymore, and I think this would be a good video to kind of just check in, just to say, hey guys, don't worry, still around, still doing stuff, I haven't left you, don't worry. This is a much more chillax series where I pretty much just talk about my life, so if anything, I think it'd be cool to just toss up in the background, kind of like a podcast, but not exactly a podcast, just something fun to have while you work on other things or do other things. Anyway, let's get started. For the agenda, I have project I'm currently working on, anything that's been trending in the world that's worth talking about, things I've been doing, things I've been watching, and I don't know, anything else right here. So let's start by talking about Captive, You Are My Idol. It's a short horror game that I'm currently working on. The game is expected to be about 40 to 90 minutes in gameplay, and it's about you playing as Aylin, an online personality who, you know, is like a YouTuber or a streamer, and, well, they get kidnapped. Cut to the next scene, and you're waking up in your kidnapper's basement. And as it so happens, I'm taking a page out of Misery because he is somewhat of a super fan. Except, he wants you to be his. So the game kind of has two sides to it. One where you're in his basement, and then the other where you're upstairs because he's inviting you to dinner. For you to get to know him a little bit more, and for him to impress you. Yes, how else to impress the person you kidnapped? By cooking them a meal. But it's really while you're upstairs having this meal where everything truly matters. Because anything you say or do can and will be used against you. But jokes aside, you kind of come to the conclusions that you have two options. One, you can examine the room, look at the different items that you have and what you can potentially use for your way to escape. Or two, you can try and charm him. Make him believe that you are actually liking him so that his guard can drop, making your escape all that more easier. But do be wary. Because if you're too obvious, he will catch on. And if that happens, then your chance for escape is gone. So this game really emphasizes on the use of MZ3D. And if you haven't seen this video, then please do. That's all the reason why this game's being created. I really wanted to make a game that wasn't just an RPG Maker game using the MZ3D engine, where the whole game is in 3D. Because as I said in that video, well, what's the purpose of buying MZ3D in RPG Maker just to make a 3D game? I think you have to use MZ3D in a unique way to really tell your story that also works uniquely for RPG Maker. While you're in the basement, you're in 2D to kind of give you this idea that you're not exactly safe, but you're in a safer position, whereas when you're upstairs in front of your kidnapper, you're in 3D, where things gets taken more seriously, and, well, you best be careful what you do next. I like to think that this swap from 2D to 3D kind of hits that uncanny valley, but not too much to take you out of the element of the game, but enough to kind of give you the sense of horror or seriousness. So yeah, that's pretty much Captive in a nutshell. And I do plan to make it at least a 3 video series, where the first one, I'll do a better job presenting it to everyone. And the second one, it will be very similar to how I made RPG Maker AI, that video. And then in the third one, will kind of be like the conclusion overall, my full thoughts on the MZ3D engine, now that I experienced it, 3 to 4 months put into it. Originally, I was hoping that it would release by around this time, but let's be real, my estimation on dates is just way off. I actually blame this thing. I call it the puzzle cube, and essentially each side of the cube is a different puzzle, and it plays a huge role during a portion of your game where you're trying to solve the cube, yet at the same time, there's a killer roaming, or your kidnappers roaming, looking for you. Haven't finished that completely, but as of all of February, I've just been working on this goddamn cube. It's so funny because some of the puzzles are much, much harder than some of the others. Like this took me 3 days to figure out. And if you're on my Instagram, I shot a quick story just to be like, I hate you. But then this one took me only an hour to finish, where 50 minutes of that hour was creating the graphics and getting it all imported into RPG Maker and making sure I got the pixels right. So yeah, I think it will be fun and a unique game that's a little bit different than several RPG Maker games that are out there right now. This is just one of 3 major endings. So yeah, you know me. I like my horror games with different endings for some reason, but each ending has its own like universe where it ends in its sort of way, not exactly having a best ending. Those who've played Caster's Trap understands what I mean by that. So the hope here is to have it finished by, at this point, I think the end of April, if I'm trying to be as realistic as possible, just because I do have several trips coming in March and April, so it'll probably delay some of my development because of that. But hey, more on that later. Now as for February, how was February? Well, it actually started off awful. Believe it or not, I got sick. This honestly has not happened to me in like the longest time, if ever, where I got sick 1 month and then literally the next month I get sick again. Where then the first month I had COVID, and then in February, I'm pretty certain it was just the flu, because it felt different from COVID and I tested negative from COVID, but it felt very flu-like, so honestly, that did knock me out for a good couple of days where I kind of just did nothing except lay down, face flat, in misery. But I watched some anime. Also, my mom's birthday was in the beginning of February. February 3rd is her actual birthday. Did we actually celebrate on the 3rd? I remember it was a Saturday or a Sunday. But anyway, we had hot pot that day and it was nice. It was delicious. It was a tasty place down in Boston. This is it. If any of you guys want to hit it up, a little bit pricey, but I think the portion matches its price, so not too shabby. Very delicious though. Other than that, my February's been pretty peaceful. Just watching anime and playing a few games. I guess on that topic, let's talk about those games. It was actually just one. I finally finished the Zero Escape trilogy. I finished the 3rd game, Virtue's Last Reward. Their titles always confuse me. Zero Time Dilemma, that's the final game of the Zero Escape series. A while back, I played AI Somnium Files, and it's honestly my favorite visual novel horror game. Granted, I've only played AI Somnium Files and Zero Escape so far, but I've at least watched Steins Gate. Yeah, I guess my opinion doesn't really matter at the moment. But bottom line, I really enjoyed AI Somnium Files, and AI Somnium Files was created by... It was written and directed by Kotaro Uchikoshi. Before AI Somnium Files, he worked on the Zero Escape series, so of course, I'm going through his history, and Zero Escape was also very fun. It's a sci-fi horror game, visual novel. I'd say it's 65% visual novel and then 35% puzzle, and a puzzle aspect to it is, in my opinion, really fun and very unique. I really enjoy that even though some stuff can be seen as repetitive from looking outwards, like you're trying to figure out a combination, you're trying to figure out a sequence of A to B to C to get to D, but I don't know, it's just done in a very unique way that you don't even think about that, and it feels like a new experience every single time. That's honestly what I want to do with any sorts of puzzle like element games that I'm creating. So yeah, I really like his work, and the story overall is somewhat addicting. The second one is my favorite. That one is Virtue's Last Reward, and that one has what's known as a ally or betray sort of sequence. So you play as all these, or you get to know all these different characters, and you can betray them or ally with them. And usually I hate that sort of thing because I get too attached to my characters. But with this one, I don't know. I think it worked out very uniquely just because it does have a lot of branching timelines. So if you choose in one timeline to ally, you get to play it again to see what it looks like in betray. And then it branches off into all these different stories or all these different alternate universes. And then it kind of somehow all links back to this one true timeline, which leads up to the true ending. And it's just very phenomenal in my opinion. Very well done and very uniquely done. I think in the third game it got a little bit too confusing because instead of like a timeline for you to walk into for each different character and each branching timeline, it's instead like snapshots of memories, and you don't exactly know where those memories goes and belongs in the timeline. So you're kind of going blindly and connecting the dots together. It makes sense in the overall aspect of the story. Your memory gets wiped out at the end of every puzzle room, but I don't know. It made it a little bit more confusing for me. I think that's my only gripe with it, but at the same time, I do understand it, and I don't know how I would make it better to make it resemble that memory loss, which I think is really cool that they decided to do. Anyway, overall, I'd say if you like having a lot of different characters and you're patient in the beginning to understand and learn about the characters a little bit as you go deeper and deeper into the game, then I'd say give it a shot. The main story is completely voiced in English and Japanese, and then in the puzzle room, you do have to read. And if you do get stuck in the puzzles, do not worry. I was totally stuck too. I looked at the walkthrough several times in order to get through. I guess on that note, I did get a thing that I do want to show off. Ta-da! I'm trying to get all that glare out of the way. It's a print of the Virtue's Last Reward. So that's the second game. And I don't know. There wasn't a lot of fan art or just art in general for the series. I think because it's, as you can tell, more than 10 years old. But I do kind of like this. The quality isn't as high as I wanted it to be, but I think it's still unique enough where if I post it in the background, any of you guys who recognizes the Zero Escape series can be like, that's my dude. Anyways, that's pretty much Zero Escape in a nutshell. I've decided to start on Digimon Survive. Probably won't finish that by the end of March, or maybe even by the end of April. I'm usually really patient with these games. But yeah, that one's also kind of visual novel-y with RPG elements. I think it's still technically an RPG, but I think there is enough cutscenes and enough dialogues where it can be considered as a visual novel. My review on that, whenever that month hits. And now, on to the next portion of the video. Let's talk about some series I've been watching. I finished Haruhi Suzumiya, and I finished Season 2 of Code Geass. Haven't seen that movie for Code Geass yet, but finished second season. And I've also watched Avatar: The Last Airbender on the Netflix, and we'll talk about that towards the very end. Let's start with Haruhi Suzumiya, and I won't dive too deep into each of these series because I think Avatar is going to take the longest, but I do want to talk about The Endless Eight of Haruhi Suzumiya. First of all, this show is a bit of a slice of life with some supernatural elements. The non-spoiler version of it is that there's a school club led by Suzumiya, Haruhi. She's a little bit self-centered and a little bit eccentric, where she has a lot of ideas on how to make the world more interesting because she's really bored of how plain it is. So she's always leading the group with all these crazy fun ideas, whether it's starting a baseball team or shooting a movie or creating a list of things to do during summer vacation. She's that sort of person, I suppose. The main character is Kyon. He's kind of like a pretty average dude. He's just getting through high school. I wouldn't say there's anything in particular that's unique about him. He's kind of just mellow, living through the motions. Of course, checking out girls. Had a total crush on Haruhi at first, and then he met her. Then there's the not main characters, but still pretty important to the story. There's Yuki, Nagato, and Mikuru Asahina, and of course our boy Itsuki Koizumi. And this group contains an alien, a time traveler, and an esper. And that's kind of the supernatural part of it. But what I want to talk about is the Crazy Eight. And Haruhi has this... Well, I guess I'm entering spoiler territory now, so... Spoilers! Skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. And here I go in 3, 2, 1. Haruhi is somewhat of a god who has these special powers that she's unaware of. So she thinks about something strongly enough, it will happen. But she just does not know she has that power. The others, Nagato, Asahina, and Koizumi, they are all aware of it, and the reason why they're together in this school group is to keep her in check, pretty much. And our main boy, Kyon, he of course gets wrapped up into all of this, and he plays an important role that isn't exactly 100% clear, but it kind of leads me to speculate and think that Haruhi has this like crush on him. She relies on his opinions, and she also feels like he supports her in that sort of way. But anyways, this Endless Eight. It was a nightmare. It was a time loop. For 8 episodes, it was a time loop. And by God, in general, I love time loops. I love Steingates, which the whole anime was a time loop. But for this... it was terrible, but it was also pretty genius. So the Endless Eight takes place over summer vacation, where Haruhi has this list of things that she wants to do, and they do it. Episode 1 finishes, and I was like, oh, okay, that was neat, cool, fun episode. Episode 2 starts, and I'm like, wait a second, did I not hit the next episode? Check the episode list on Crunchyroll, and I was like, no, this is the next episode. So I continued to watch, and lo and behold, practically 98% of that episode was exactly the same as the previous. Now, I understand why this happened, and it's because at the end of summer vacation, because of Haruhi, she has this goal in mind, this vision to have a complete summer. She has like this expectation, and during the first episode, it did not hit it. So she decided to revert time back, and during that moment, she also erased everyone's mind. So that kind of gives you an idea of her powers that she's totally unaware of. So we're walking through Kyon's perspective, going through all 8 of these episodes, where each time his mind gets wiped out. And there's only one character who remembers and sees and witnesses everything, and that is Nagato. She's our alien, and she is a unique character where she's unable to really intervene too much. She considers her as just a watcher, and she'll only intervene when things becomes large enough where Haruhi could practically erase the world or do something insane, or some sort of action can do something like that. Anyway, for these 8 episodes, I would say that 95% of it is the same. Like legit, I could look at a YouTube compilation video, and it will probably be less than 10 minutes for all the differences between those 8 episodes. Like, yes, there does become a slow realization that this is a time loop as the episodes go by, but the amount of difference and the amount of time it takes for Kyun and the rest of the group to realize that it is a time loop is like halfway through the episodes. So the first half is pretty much all the same with like a little sprinkle of difference where Kyun is like, wait, I think this looked familiar, but it's brutal. Like, it came to the point where I was watching these episodes and I just pulled out my phone to do stuff, and then when something changed, I was like, ooh, toss it aside because I was so ready to see the difference. I was hoping that we would see the perspective of each of the different characters to make it feel unique and fresh. But no, I did not need to toss my phone. I should have held on to it the whole time, because in less than a minute, it went back to being all the same. So after saying all that, why do I think it's genius? Well, if we stop to think about its original release date, I'm pretty sure that in Japan it lined up at the start of summer vacation, and those 8 episodes actually was where it ended at the end of summer vacation. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat idea. So that not only are you watching this time loop, you're actually physically feeling this time loop while you're enjoying your summer vacation. And I'm sure that there's like all these different underlying messages. Not exactly sure if that's what it's meant to, but that's kind of like what I get from here. But man, imagine Ashley being the kid who watches this each week as it releases, excited for this new anime that you really enjoyed, only to be stuck in that time loop and hate every second of it. Like, I imagine it was the talk of the talk at its time. It was like, dude, did you catch Haruhi? Yeah, I think they like replayed the last episode. No, there was that slight difference at 23 minutes. I think right now it's much easier to watch because all the episodes are released and you can actually watch it in compilation form as a YouTube video. But dude, that must have been brutal at the time. Anyway, if you saw Haruhi, what were your thoughts? I'd love to know down below. Moving on to Code Geass, and there's honestly not too much to say. I think overall it was just a great anime. They have a lot of well-written characters, and it was just easy to feel addicted to any one of them. I will say that the show is a little bit political, not just all cool mechs and action and just war scenes, but there is a bit of politics to it that I kind of just blanked out for a moment because I'm just awful with politics. But I also like to think that it didn't go too deep into it that could turn off the series for some folks. I think it was pretty well balanced between the politics, the war, the character dramas, the cool mech actions. Yeah, I think it was just a very well overall balanced anime. I think in season 2 though, they got a little bit more daring with their camera angles and certain scenes. But if you're into the type of stories where you have 2 best friends on 2 separate sides of the war, then I think you'll enjoy this. And now, let's talk about Avatar, Netflix. Oh boy, you know, if there were 2 sides, you like it or you hate it, and there's no in between, I would actually land on the like it side. But if 0 was hate it like the live action movie, and 10 was love it like the anime series or animation, cartoon, whichever you want to call it, I would say I'm at 6. Or, if I'm generous, 6.5. But I wouldn't go any higher than that. There's a lot of things wrong with the Avatar live action series, and I think in part of it has to do with how many episodes that show was given, and the fact that it is a cartoon trying to be a live action. And I think that any adaptation from the original source material will always fall lower than the source material. It's usually never rises at it or above it. So I think that's kind of the reason why I forgive it a little bit more. I think let's start with the actors. Overall, I don't mind the acting too much. I'm fine with Aang. I know most people aren't, because he just he feels like an amateur actor. But I'm actually fine with it. I've watched enough dub anime where I'm kind of just used to those goofy dub lines, and even though the voice actors are doing the best that they can, it can only sound so good. And I feel like the actor for Aang is also doing the best that he could. Aang himself, I think, is a very hard character to play. He's not only very, very young, but he's also very, very goofy, very smiley, and just a very happy kid. So how do you portray it? I don't know. I'm thinking that given the lines that he was given and trying to show cartoon as a live action is just way too difficult to do. No matter what, it will hit that uncanny valley to take you out of the experience. And there's just really no true way to capture the character of Aang from the animation into a live action. I just think it's pretty impossible to do. And now you're making a 12-year-old kid do it. That's just even more difficult, you know? As for all the other characters, I actually wasn't too all that bad. I think where the show fails with the characters was the writing and the development for them. Like, watching those 8 episodes, I wouldn't really say that Aang developed all that much or at all. And same can be said about Katara and Sokka. I think, if anything, it kind of was a Zuko live action series. No matter what they do for live action, they always pin it on Zuko for some reason. But hey, I digress. I'm trying to talk about Team Avatar. I feel as though that Sokka and Katara did not get enough of the spotlight that they deserved, and that their characters had no development throughout the series. And no offense to the actress who plays as Katara, but I do think your waterbending was a little too loose and could have been a little bit sharper, just because you're like very loose and then the water that we see kind of just sporadically goes nuts. It could have been the effects team, but I don't know, it just didn't match up as well as it could have. Now let's go to Team Fire Nation. And overall, I think Zhao was good. Uncle Iroh, I think he was good, but there's something a little bit uncanny for him for me. I think the energy he gives off is a little bit, kind of leans towards aggressive, even though he's like acting very happy. So there's like a little bit of an uncanny for that for me. Like, even when he's talking gently, I feel like there's a little bit of yelling underneath it. But outside of that, I think Uncle Iroh was pretty good. Fire Lord, great. Zuko, I actually enjoyed Zuko a lot. I think he matches that angsty teenager. God dang, I need to find the avatar. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with Zuko. Do I dare talk about his sister and her friends? I am sorry, but her friends just look like they are straight up in cosplay. The wigs look super wiggy, and their costume kind of look a little, I don't know, I think it's mostly the wigs really. But every time they showed up, Ty Lee and Mai, they honestly did not have any purpose on screen. Like, they didn't really do anything. We didn't really get to see them in action. I understand that they're probably saving them for season 2 where they get their limelight, but also, the 3 of them don't show up until season 2 in the series. They decided to rewrite them and make them show up so early on, where that was not unnecessary. Which, I guess on that topic, let's talk about the rewrites. Okay, so I understand. It's only 8 episodes long, and each episode is only about 50 minutes long, And I also understand the need to combine multiple episodes into one live action episode, like Omashu in the Northern Air Temple, because if they were trying to do one-to-one, then in 20 minutes you're at the Northern Air Temple, then in the next 20 minutes you have to somehow find your way to Omashu, or something like that. Technically backwards, they went to Omashu first and then the Northern Air Temple much later on. But my real question is, why couldn't they just do 12 episodes? Give them a little bit more leeway to develop the characters and get things a little bit more closer to one-to-one. But instead, those rewrites, some of them, like, combining those episodes. I'm fine with that. I understand that. The ones that I'm not willing to forgive was my man Boomy. Boomy was a really likable character in the animated series. And then in the live action, he's so bitter that you actually want to hate the dude. It's awful that they did that to my man Boomy. And then also with the past avatars, especially my man Roku, they did him so much dirt. Like, he's a dude who's supposed to give Aang some wisdom and to warn him of the coming comet. Instead, in the live action, I don't really remember it all that much anymore because it was that bad, but I'm pretty sure my dude just said, Aang, you gotta do this alone. Forget your friends. Life is rough out there. You must overcome and do it yourself. Alright, peace. Those are the rewrites that I'm not willing to forgive. The rewrites that I'm down to forgive is combine the episodes because you got to. But when you rewrite the characters that we all love so much, that's where we feel the most pain. And of course, there's the underdeveloped main cast of Team Avatar that they so deserve. So with all that, how could I possibly say that I'm at a 6 or a 6.5 of enjoying Avatar? Well, it does still have a bit of that spirit of Avatar. I do feel like I'm in this whole new world of benders. And the bending, for the most part, it looks good. It doesn't look amazing, being the Netflix budget that it is, and the younger cast with less experience, and the rush timelines to get them to all do the things that they need to do. But I think the bending looked decent enough where it actually looked like I can be immersed into this world. And seeing the certain scenes that did go back to the animated series, did bring out that kid in me, all those fond memories that I had. So I will admit, I am biased towards Avatar in general, where I'm like, oh yes, Avatar, I don't care what it is, I'll have this much more like for it just because it's Avatar, period. So maybe that's where it's coming from. I think seeing those certain scenes and those certain Easter eggs that calls back one-to-one to the original series brings out that nostalgia that makes me like the series a bit more. And coming from a content creator perspective, I also understand the need to rewrite and go in your own direction from the original source material. Because admittingly, if it was very one-to-one to the original source material, then it would come to the point of, why bother watching the live action when I have the original source material, where the original source material will always be the best because it is the original source material. Like, yeah, seeing things in a live action aspect is a cool flex, but you could do anything you want in animation. Especially when it comes to that goofiness and charm of a cartoon that would just be completely uncanny and unnatural in a live action. Anyway, there's more things I want to say about this, but I kind of just lost myself in this rant. The only thing that comes to mind is talking about the future of it. And I also understand that as they try and do more and more episodes, our cast is getting older, and our 12-year-old Aang, he's already 14. So by the end of all 3 seasons, or all 3 books, he'll probably be close to 20, if not 18. I like to think that, if anything, this is like an alternate universe of the Avatar series, as opposed to the animated original source material. And if you look at it through that lens, then it does become more enjoyable. But if you get really, really picky about all the different scenes and different characters, and it's not honoring the original source material, then of course you're gonna hate it. If it's not the original source material, then how will you like it? I think coming into this Avatar series as a person who has never seen the animated series, I think they would enjoy this. But then you can just be like, alright dude, I'm gonna blow your mind to something even better if you like this animated series. I mean, if you like this live action series. It's called the original cartoon, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It will blow your minds in so many ways because it is just that good. There's actually this interview I watched with the original voice actor of Zuko, with the live action actor of Zuko, and I forgot what he says exactly, but it's something about, this is your Zuko now. Show us your Zuko. So I like to think that this is Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and for them to show us their Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, it truly is a different universe versus the animated series that we've seen. And if you can put your mind to that, I think you'll enjoy it. Or at least enjoy it a little bit more. And that anything that you see that is one-to-one to the animated series will feel very, very special and very, very heartwarming. Alright you guys, I think this pretty much wraps it up. Just me talking about my life and ranting about the things I've seen and done. If you want to see more of this, let me know down in the comments or hit that like button, and I'll see you potentially in the next month. Or sooner, who knows? Anything can happen. Alright, later. How do I do it? Bye.